So Thormun's journal entry number 2. We did number 1 last podcast, and so we're gonna do journal entry number 2. And beside the journal entries, we see kind of like a sketch of Sergeant Drake Alexander here. And should I start? I'll start the first paragraph, and someone else can jump in on paragraph 2 and paragraph 3. So let's start. All right. War is everywhere, and its dangers multiply as Ukkar's army grows in size and ferocity. I underestimated Utgar's savagery and hunger for power. His massive, tireless, well-prepared armies attack relentlessly, with little or no warning, and leave a sickening path of destruction in their wake. And now they have done the unforgivable. They have invaded my hometown of... Jeremy?
Tealeron.
Tealeron. Thank you.
Yeah.
I knew I wasn't going to get that. The peaceful village where I spent my childhood, where my brother, his wife, and his children made their home, now utterly annihilated. A smoldering heap of rubble. I can only pray that my friends and family escaped safely. All right, who wants to do paragraph number 2?
Recently, I had the privilege of meeting Jandar, Archkyrie, and ruler of Nostraland, where many of Utgar's armies are now waging war. When Jandar told me of his constant need for soldiers and scouts, I eagerly volunteered for a scouting post in his army. The horrors of his war have given me new resolve, and I am no longer content to travel in secret. I am old, but I still fly, and I know the region well. We will not lose this war. Utgar will not destroy this planet, and I will not sit silently by and simply watch Utgar work his evil.
Okay, paragraph number 3.
I'll go for it.
All right.
Jandar also spoke of other Valkyrie, others who had drunk from the well springs. Rumors are of a Valkyrie in the east named Ular. It is unclear whether he is Jandar's ally, Utgar's ally, or serves his own purpose. Jandar is sending emissaries to meet with Ular and the 2 others who have made their presence known. These other Valkyrie have not mastered the difficulties of summoning armies as of now. Their forces are small, but soon they too will learn to control the visions and the war will only get worse. I hope their hearts are pure.
All right. So that is journal entry number 2. And let's talk a little bit about this, because this talks like a little bit about Thormun personally, about Utgar's advancement, as well as talking about new Valkyrie generals at this time. So starting at the top, when it comes to Utgar's army and invading this hometown of Tealeron, right, Jeremy?
Yeah, Tealeron. Yeah.
And as you being the lore master, do you know anything about this town more than what's in the writing here?
I think this is one of the first times we hear about it, and kind of if you take the time to, if you remember when in Carmine was talking about how he viewed Thormun as this complex character, this individual with like really deep motivations in the war. He specifically mentions both in the trailer and later on about how Thormun had a revenge motive. And so this passage is where that revenge motive comes from, because he finds out his hometown's gone. Like, they mentioned utterly annihilated, and that was the big thing about Utgar's forces, is that he doesn't just invade. He takes out everything. It's like a complete wipeout. And so that's what gave him incentive to get involved in the first place. But yeah. So this is a really big, really important paragraph, I think, in terms of understanding Thormun's character, because this is why he did everything he's been doing, and they were actually planning on using that as his motivations for Age of Annihilation, right? And they mentioned when he got his own plans to summon and everything is because of this. This was like the point. So that started it all. Pretty good stuff.
It's an interesting background. And you got to wonder though, as well as Ukar's motive. Was it just to destroy, or I mean, was there an ulterior motive? Maybe knowing that this was Thormun's village.
I think it was just because like his Ukar's big thing was, what did they say? It was like control. You know, they even mentioned like the last bit we got before everything in that trailer was that Utkar laid down the gauntlet. He was like, "You either do what I say or die." You know, like that was the two choices you had, and assuming that Tealeron was either in the way of another Valkyrie he was trying to conquest, or was one of the locations or anything like that, it would be the primary motivation. Utkar found it a obstacle and just mowed it down. But yeah, it's just like they explain it in, how do I say it? Like there's more description and stuff like that. They mentioned like the webisodes, how he was just storming, like thousands upon thousands of orcs were just piling and taking out villages left and right and turning them into rubble. And I think Tealeron was just one of those, like one of the many that got caught up in the rush. So
Okay. And then, well, yeah. Someone else had to say anything about that paragraph?
I'm good. Yeah, this is just kind of like the beginning of, their, I guess, talking about the Utgar's wrath.
Right. It does really start the plot, the story along. Creates some conflict and backstory with especially Thormun. Even though he's not a miniature character, it still provides context. And then like with the next two paragraphs as well, talking about the meeting of these Valkyrie generals, Jandar, Ular, as well, and meeting them, and not too sure about one or the other, but just that underlying fear that will the Wellsprings corrupt them as well.
One of the great things about the way Heroscape lore is set up is that there's so many sort of open sockets in which you could plug in more story. So what did Utkar really want attacking this village? We don't know. What does Thormun have to do with it, if anything? We don't know. I like this passage also as a sort of a good example of the open sockets for the lore. I mean, you mentioned Carmine. I mean, I think he and Craig and they were looking forward to taking advantage of some of that, and whatever happens next with the lore, I'm sure we'll do that too.
Right.
For sure.
Because I know he was in the trailer when he was teasing that Thormun was going to take things into his own hands. He was like, yeah, Thormun has a reason to, and I think part of that reason is in this chapter with his home village getting destroyed. Of course, Thormun's going to want to, start fighting on his own terms. But he starts off as a scout, so this is like the origin story, and then I guess throughout the passage of time, he's realizing, I'm working for Jandar, but it's not accomplishing my vision of revenge. So I think I have to take things in my own hands, and that's where they were going to go with it. So, which is really intriguing.
Yeah, one thing I always want to have too is like more journal entries, in the future, like official ones, that gives more detail and context to storyline or people or generals.
Yeah, I would hope that maybe somebody would take up the reins of being the next, journalist for Valhalla. Since, at least for me, I'm taking it granted that Thormun is going to be the next Valkyrie, and he's going to bring in his own units and start fighting, and he's putting down the book, he's slamming it down and go, nope, someone else take it. I'm done with this job. I'm rolling up my sleeves and I'm going to kick some booty, right?
Yep.
You can say that.
And it says, I mean, it shows in this paragraph too a lot about Thormun's personality too, especially if he, eventually if there's a way to make him Valkyrie General and have miniatures, under his banner, is the fact that he's very calculating. He investigates, and you can see that in his writings that he looks at the personalities, the strengths, the weaknesses of enemies and allies. So definitely has a head of knowledge to take advantage of those who you see fit. So it is a perfect character to go up against everybody. It just doesn't matter. You consider good or evil. Just yeah. And anything else? Anything else? For this, like anything to talk about like that might be important with Jandar or Ular mentioned in here?
So they just the quick introductions of those characters. We know this is where we find out Jandar's not only in the Valkyrie, but he's a political leader, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is probably really important to make the distinction, because I have seen it been muddled before, and it's fine, it happens. But Valkyrie is an individual who drinks the well springs and gets the powers to summon, whereas an Archcurie is like a king or like a ruler, like a leadership position. And so you can't be an Archcurie and summon. You have to be a Valkyrie to summon, right?
Mm.
And the words have been mixed up before, but it's fine. It's just they point out in this particular passage he's Archcurie of Nastralund and a Valkyrie, because he has his own army. And you can actually check that out on the map if you do have a chance to check it out on the map. Nastralund is the highest northern province area.
Right.
Like it's the closest to the Thailand tundra, so he's basically in charge of the north, is the best way to put it. So, and they mention that Ular's also, they mention Ular as a Valkyrie, but then we find out later he's also an Archcurie of Ekstrom, which is the next nation next to him. So you can they start playing out the map pretty early on, so which is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of laying out the allegiances and everything like that.
Yeah, it gives that context. All right. Well, if nobody else has anything, we will move on to our next segment. You're good?
Yeah.
Great. Right. So, and just to close out this segment for Thormun's journal entry, and look forward to reading the next journal entries in the future.